Turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies and declarations. I have apologies from Councillor Topping and Councillor Hobbs-Aldrich, and there are no substitutions. We also currently have a vacancy in the LET chair, and therefore no representation from the LET today. Are there any other apologies or substitutions? Yes.
Dr. Gary has some substitution for Jeff Gordon for the Clinical Commissioning Group.
Okay, lovely, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Councillor Bull.
Yes.
You're more than welcome.
Apologies to be made, Chairman.
Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Couch.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I wish to declare a declaration of interest in regards to agenda item number 2.4 by view of the fact that I am still a member of the LET board technically as of today. I do not believe that this has any conflict of interest for me, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Should at any point in time during the discussions of that agenda item reveal to me if there is a conflict of interest, I will make you aware and take appropriate action.
Thank you, Councillor Couch. Any other declarations of interest? No. Thank you very much. Minutes of the 29th of November 2017. Does everybody agree that the minutes are a correct record? Thank you. Everybody sign them as indicated. Thank you, Mr. President. There are no petitions, no public questions. Item 1.5 is the forward plan. The forward plan is published on the web and is updated regularly. It was most recently republished on Monday, and members are requested to note the contents. So we move on to part 2, which are the non-key decisions. Item 2.1 is transport, development of decision-making and delivery arrangements. Councillor John Clark. I would like to ask you to introduce this item. And Keith Williams is also here, our Transport and Infrastructure Director, and he will answer any questions in detail. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. Following devolution, certain transport powers were transferred to the combined authority from Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council. However, both these authorities still retain powers under the Highways Act. This has created a complex environment with a variety of bodies with different powers and responsibilities promoting development and delivering a range of transport schemes. What is clear that it's a huge amount of good work being undertaken in this area, and we can be confident that significant investment into the region's transport infrastructure will continue. But we need to ensure that the various bodies are working together to maximise the impact of this investment. To facilitate this, it is recognised that the greater clarity is required on the role of the combined authority and how this relates to other bodies currently working within the transport environment. This paper seeks to set out the transport role of the combined authority, make recommendations on the principles that should be adopted for decision making and delivery, agree that further work should be undertaken to establish how the design of this work will out in practice, and make proposals for the delegation of the transport functions for the year of 2018-2019. This paper provides clarity on the role of the combined authority and positively sets out the principles for future transport decision making and delivery. However, there is still much work to be done, and I encourage all parties to work together to translate these principles into an effective decision-making framework. I am therefore happy to commend this paper to the board for approval. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Any questions? No. Keith, have you got anything to add?
I've read more content on paper if you wish.
Yes. Councillor Hurd.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to welcome the fact, the clarity in Paragraph 2.8 in terms of what is quality decision making, and obviously we are working with other organisations, so where we can deliver major improvements, then we clearly can do that in partnership, and obviously having a dual hat with the Greater Cambridge Partnership, I'm keen to see schemes like the Rapid Mass Transit and other strategic projects delivered in the best way. So it's good to clarify it. Clearly, we just need to be we need to have a much clearer understanding of how the strategic role of the combined authority is going to link with initiatives that are underway, but to add extra energy, including the opportunities that you've opened, both in terms of potential investment and working out of Whitehall.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts, did you have your hand up? No? Councillor Campbell.
Yes, Chair, I just wish to add that this is obviously a necessity moving forward. It is a complex area. It's not something that gets resolved within a couple of pages on a document. So I look forward to the workshop where we can actually put the meat on the bone and actually decide how to work well together. I note that Cambridgeshire County Council has had the powers delegated for another year, and obviously we need to find a way forward to how we get the strategic direction and some of the minutiae detail separated out into their appropriate areas, and I think that work's yet to be undertaken, and I think it's in the right direction.
Thank you. Keith, did you want to come back? No, Claire. Okay, so we are asked to agree by simple majority. I would like to take A, B, C and D all together.
Sorry, Mayor, I don't know if you've been advised, but the scrutiny committee did ask.
I need to take the decision first, and then we'll ask you for what's to say.
Sorry.
I'm going to take A, B, C and D together. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Count and a second. Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please? And that's unanimous, I believe. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I would like to ask the Chairman of the Scrutiny Committee to come forward and offer forward the questions that the Scrutiny have asked on Monday. Okay, thank you, Councillor Batchford. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Three questions the overview and the scrutiny committee have asked me to raise with you this morning. Have you had copies of them?
I received them this morning, yes.
Yeah. Just for the benefit of the public, I just read them out. So the first one is to ask the board to clarify who has the control of the transport budget. If the budget has been devolved to the County Council and Peterborough City Council, are the board aware of budget options under consideration for the removal of certain subsidies? Now, the background to this is about clarity of decision making. I appreciate that in the paper it says quite clearly that all responsibilities are being devolved to the county and to Peterborough, and it also says without condition. But the question is, does that absolve you of your overall responsibility? In the end, the combined authority has responsibility for the transport fund, and it also, through the Transport Act, has very direct responsibilities for subsidised bus services. That's at the Transport Act section 63.1 and 63.5. The reason we're raising this is that could encourage the idea that the combined authority would be an area where people could come and appeal against decisions made by the county and Peterborough. And I think it would be wise that we actually clarify what that position is. So that's question 1. Question 2 is another one. Obviously all this is about clarity for everybody. So we'd like to have some clarity around which subsidies are being looked at, i.e. There's a number quoted in the minutes of 2.5 million, for example, for transport costs for the county council. It's not clear what the detail of that is. In particular, does that actually include home to school transport costs? If we could have some clarity on that, that would be good. The other item is the integrated plan that is due to come, and the forward plan sometime in May, June to this board. The scrutiny committee would like to have input to that and would ask that we have the opportunity to do so well in advance of those papers coming to this board.
Okay.
That's me, thank you.
Well, there are written replies here, and I'm quite happy to read them to you. So, question 1. For the 17-18 financial year, transport housing budgets have been devolved to Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council. It is intended that transport budgets will continue to be devolved for 18-19 along with certain transport functions, including the role of travel concessionaire authority and the provision of socially necessary bus services. Whilst the combined authority is responsible for budget setting, it is the responsibility of Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council to decide how this funding is allocated. This includes any decisions relating to bus subsidy. So I hope that's clear, and obviously you can take away these. Question 2, I'm quite surprised at question 2 because I would have expected that the scrutiny would know the brief. But the combined authority are not responsible for school transport, and it was never in the devolved document. And I'm surprised that it came to us with this question. So these responsibilities continue to lie with the upper tier authorities and have not changed following devolution. Question 3, integrated planning. As part of the development of the local transport plan, the project team will be engaging with a cross-section of officers and members from each of the constituent members of the combined authority and will include O&S. So you will certainly be involved. Okay?
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bass. Item 2.2 on the agenda is establishing the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Land Commission. And Councillor Herbert is the portfolio holder, so the floor is yours, Councillor.
Thank you. So we've earlier taken a report there on the plans for a non-statutory spatial plan, and linked into that is a commitment in the devolution document which greatly assists that, and that is that the public sector holds large amounts of land, including national bodies, and certainly it's our wish to involve national organisations in the Land Commission to ensure that nationally owned sites, including health, defence and other sites, are more available in terms of opportunities for brownfield and other development. So the public sector owns a very large amount of real estate in Cambridge and Peterborough. Not all of it is in, or not a large proportion of it is in locations that are strategic or developable. And so the purpose here is to undertake the objectives that are in Para 1.3, where we're going to look at the barriers, particularly of strategic sites. We're going to link that to the need to deliver extra housing and affordable housing, and the membership is detailed further into the report on Para 2.15, and we have already got a number of additional members being identified. So it's to take forward work that was developed by the county council in particular, coordinating with local authorities. There has been a lot of work done already. There are significant sites which can be better brought forward, and good decisions made linking up with the work that we're going to do on spatial planning and local plans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Herbert? Well, I would just like to thank Councillor Herbert for his excellent work so far. The Combined Authority Board is recommended to agree by a simple majority, and there are again an A, B, a C and a D here, and I will take them all as one. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Herbert, and a second. Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Item 2.3 on the agenda is the update on the Peterborough University business case and project report progress. Unfortunately, Councillor Holditch is not well, and unfortunately, Stephen Rosevear, who is the officer in charge here, can't make it today either. So, luckily for us, the Chief Executive Martin Whiteley is here, and he knows everything about everything we're doing in detail. So, Martin is going to introduce himself.
Thank you, Mayor. So the University of Peterborough has been of importance to us for some time, and it's therefore incumbent upon me to just give a very brief update of where we are on progress. There are two, so is the Mayor okay? There are a couple of substantive points just to bring to the Board's attention. The first is that over the last few months, there's been quite a considerable amount of work undertaken by the project team to identify the best potential site for interim location of the university as it develops. And that's involved discussion with partners in the Peterborough area and making sure that we're making the best use of the public estate. And those discussions have continued, but have now reached a point where there is agreement about what steps need to be taken forward, and the detail of that will be brought forward in due course in February. The second substantive point about the project is that steps have been taken by the team to significantly strengthen the makeup of the project team, including the scale of the personnel involved in the project and indeed the specific skills that are being brought to bear to make sure that the project is successful. So the project is continuing to proceed. It's continuing with the importance that you would expect, and I would simply say that the Board should expect that it will receive its next report at the end of February. Thank you.
The floor is open, members. Any comments? Councillor Cowson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is obviously vital for the area. Whilst we're here in the south of the county, Cambridgeshire University is well established, the two universities, and they make a terrific job of contributing to the overall well-being, both in economic and skills and education, of the entire area. The north doesn't have the same advantage, and the delivery of a university in Peterborough would be absolutely fantastic, not just for Peterborough itself, but those that live closer to it. In terms of moving the business case forward, I've argued for, and it's been accepted under 3.2, that the combined authority should not and cannot just be a grant funding authority. We do need to think that, whilst £20 million a year is very welcome, it does have there is a limit to what we can achieve with that. And that limit, we have to rotate the funds as much as possible. And therefore, in bringing this business case together, I hope that we will look and explore every opportunity to see where we may avoid simple grant funding, but have the funding based on some kind of business case that enables future schemes to come forward in the same manner by the return of funds. With that, I do support this.
Thank you, Councillor Cowden. Any other points on you? No? Then I'm happy to go to the vote. The Combined Authority Board is recommended to note the current progress being made by partners on the university project. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Clark, and a second, Councillor Paul. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'd just like to reiterate how sitting here in Cambridge, seat of learning, how important it is to invest in to Cambridgeshire's largest city and invest into a university there, and how important it will be for the future growth of the county, not just around the Peterborough area, but as a whole. Item 2.4 on the agenda is establishing a new stronger public and private sector partnership in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I'd just like to say that the local enterprise partnership met on the 19th of December to discuss the alternative proposals for delivery and how the combined authority could deliver a new model of strategic leadership. Because our papers were published before the LEP meeting, our report was published confidentially. Now that the meeting of the LEP has been held, I consider that this report be debated and voted on in public. And I would propose to members of this board that we consider reports in public. Do I have a second? Councillor Herbert. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So we will move to discussion on item 2.4. And I'll introduce Martin Whiteley first. Thank you. Martin.
So the paper is being circulated to members of the public. I'll pick out the main points, if I may, Mayor, about the position. Let me start first of all with the position of the Local Enterprise Partnership. So at its board meeting yesterday, a number of important decisions were taken by the board. They were taken unanimously and agreed by all members of the board. The key points are as follows. First of all, that the chair of the board has resigned with immediate effect. Secondly, that the other members of the LEP board have agreed to resign, but with conditionality. And the conditionality of their resignation is that they do so on the basis that they receive assurances that, first of all, the short-term liabilities of the enterprise and the company that governs the enterprise are all met in full. And secondly, that when they are known, the full liabilities of the company are also met and discharged to allow for a voluntary winding up of the company on or before the 31st of March. Now, those are significant decisions taken by the board, and they're taken in the light of the financial position that the organisation faces, and in the light of a view of the board that the best interests of the area are served by taking those decisions. So that was the position that was discussed and, as I say, agreed unanimously yesterday. So there are now a series of actions that need to be taken in order to secure both the short-term and longer-term liabilities of the GCGP LEP and its company, and there needs to be a formal process entered which achieves a successful voluntary winding up of the company. We will be taking those steps in my capacity as the interim chief executive of the LEP over the coming months, and we will provide ongoing reports both to the directors of the board of the LEP until which point they formally transfer their position into resignation, and also formal reports to this board about the progress and the processes that we're following. So that's the position regarding GCGP LEP. If I turn now to the proposals moving forward that are set out in this paper, and let me just highlight some of the key components. So first of all, it is proposed that this board consider the proposal to establish a new business board, and that new business board would in effect form the same responsibilities of a local enterprise partnership for any area, but the establishment of a new board would create the opportunity to develop a diverse, respected and powerful group that could be focused on strategy and programmes that make a real difference to the growth of this area. So it is envisaged that we would identify new members of the board who could represent the key sectors that are important to the economic growth of our area, and that their representation is such that they can not only speak for the sectors, but they can speak to the wider area and to government about the importance of the economy of our area, and can through that strength of representation be a powerful voice in advising the combined authority about the decisions that it takes on investment in infrastructure and other matters that support the economic growth of the area. So we are essentially proposing that we create a new business board that is advisory in its capacity, and that it is advisory to the combined authority in the first instance about important matters supporting economic growth. That is the first feature. The second items to mention are that the creation of the new business board and the closer relationship between the business board and the combined authority create the position that allows us to have a much stronger strategic position around all aspects of supporting economic growth. So it allows us to consolidate our positions around having a single regional economic strategy and industrial strategy for this area. It allows us to consolidate our work around spatial planning that Councillor Herbert leads on, and cementing our view in this area about where and how we're going to support economic growth across the piece. And it allows us to make sure that we're bringing together decisions about financial matters in one place. So to that point, what we're also intending is that moving forward, that the combined authority would become the accountable body for all financial matters relating to investment through the combined authority and through growth funding. Now that has and brings with it some significant advantage. First of all, it creates clarity about the totality of funding that is available to the area in that respect, and it brings together in one place the decision making about funding, so that therefore there is transparency and clarity about where that funding is being targeted, and we can be more confident in the decision making that we're taking about the use of those public monies. It will require the government to also agree, if this board agrees, that the combined authority does indeed become the accountable body, but we're led to believe that that is a measure that the government will support. The other key points to mention are that this also means that we would have the opportunity to bring forward a single administration that could work together to support not only the combined authority but also the working of the new business board. So the proposal is that I will develop on behalf of both those boards proposals of a new single structure that will be brought back to this board for support and recommendation. And that will provide both strength and resilience, and also, I consider, better value for the public purse in the way in which we're using resources to support the programme moving forward. And finally, this new direction creates the position where we can consider afresh the functioning economic area of the wider geography that we have. And so that means that we need to consider, again, the relationships with those local authorities that are outside of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, but are currently within the geography of the CGP LEP, to determine what is the most effective combination to create potentially coterminosity between the boundaries of the combined authority and the boundaries of the local enterprise partnership. So in summary, Mayor, those are the key features of the proposal moving forward.
Thank you very much. Floor is open. Any views? Please inquire Commissioner Aylward.
Do I need to have that on? One second. There we are. Oh, I thought it was an extension button there, which is not like that. I've been, as a former LEP board member, exceptionally concerned for some years about the lack of joined-up thinking between both the LEP and local authorities and the wider geography and wider economic geography. With the advent of the new combined authority, I think it's absolutely right that this was reviewed very early on, so that we don't have separate organisations that are basically trying to deliver similar things but not pulling in the same direction. So I think this should be welcomed. I've also long argued the fact that the LEP should have always been coterminous with Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and some of the add-ons that have been insisted upon over the years, I don't think have been very successful. I've never really understood where Rutland fits in with the economic prosperity of some of the greatest economic growth in the UK. So I think a review of that is long overdue as well. We long understood that the key growth areas are M11, A14, A1M, along that area and across the geography of Cambridgeshire to support that. But I think a review, like I say, is long overdue and it's something that I wholeheartedly support.
Thank you. Councillor Herbert.
Yeah, some of my comments are similar to those of Jason Ablewhite. I think there had to be a join-up, and I think it was unfortunate that we spent a couple of years discussing this in the prelude to devolution and after. I do regret some of the ways that this has been brought about, because I don't think it has built on some of the strengths of the LEP. If we're going forward, my view is that there has to be an independent voice for business, and that's not because it has a special place, because I think that's to be an independent voice for the community and for other institutions within our geography as well. So I certainly will be watching to see that this business board does have real independence. It's talking about having a company. I don't think it will have real substance unless it actually has some powers. I was never a fan of LEPs. Similar to Jason Ablewhite, had troubles about exactly how effective the LEP was, but then I would say it was mid-table compared to the LEPs around the country. So it isn't a fault of the efforts of the people involved, and I think we should thank the people who have put so much time into the economic investment that has occurred. But I will be hanging in there for both the join-up that we've got, the single administration, which was always sensible. I will also hang in there for making sure that people can't be in two LEPs, because I just think that that's an abomination, given that that doesn't actually represent clarity. I'm not wedded to business geography or delivery of housing geography on our county boundaries, but we do need to come to a resolution on those issues and link that in with spatial planning and also which local authorities we're working with beyond our geography. But I come back to my central point there, which is I will not be supportive of a business board unless it comes forward with an independence of mind and a freedom of operation, and isn't just some kind of poodle in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Herbert. Councillor Camp.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that is clear moving forwards is to have any benefit from the new economic board would be to give them a strong voice, or encourage them with a strong voice. And I totally take that on board, that is the meaning of this here. In terms of the benefits of moving forwards, it's clear that the industrial strategy set by the government makes the combined authorities responsible for delivering that industrial strategy, and therefore to have the combined authority with this board inside it where there is a strong voice in order to deliver that strategy is welcome, rather than having two attempts at intrinsically the same task. I do hope that moving forward, one of the questions raised about the devolution and the setting up of devolution was what is it going to cost the local person, and won't this just mean extra bureaucracy and that? And here is a good example of where we're avoiding duplication. We're incorporating the two teams into one to find the best way forward to maintain a strong business voice and a combined authority that listens to that voice. But we don't need two chief executives, we don't need two Section 151 officers, we don't need two monitoring officers. So not only should we move forward with that single structure, but I think we should monetise that and use that as part of our evidence to the public at a later date and to the Overview Scrutiny Committee to exactly demonstrate that we are delivering good value for money to the public and demonstrating, everybody in the room should be aware that the County Council is at the forefront, probably nationally, of public sector reform and sharing services and that. Not only do we have the highest profile shared chief executive in the country, we are sharing all directorates underneath it. We've already set up LGSS a number of years ago with Northamptonshire, with expanded abilities. And all that avoiding of duplication that saves the public purse. And I think that is a very important message to get out there, which is a side message to the intrinsic one about let's drive the economic growth of this area forward. And by this area, there is a question not initially asked by us, asked by government, about the area, the functioning economic areas of combined authorities and LEPs where they are not co-terminus. It's been part of their industrial strategy. This has to be looked at. So it's good that we're looking at that now. What that actually means in the long term and which direction we go, that'll be up to the board and the LEP members to hopefully work together to drive out what's the best for this area, whatever that area may be.
Thank you, Councillor. No further points. So I want to take the voting here, but the agenda you have before you obviously was written before the board decision yesterday by the GCB, the LEP. So I will take them one by one. Number two, I'll take any two, but just I think we need to amend the wording, Mr. Rowland. So first of all, it's quite an easy one. The Combined Authority one is recommended to note the decisions proposed with the Greater Cambridgeshire, Greater Peterborough Local Enterprise Partnership regarding the future of its company. Can I have a proposal for that, please? Councillor Robertson, a seconder, please. Councillor Clark, all those in favour? It's unanimous. Number two says, should the GCP and GCP, should the LEP accept the proposals made to it? Well, we know that they did yesterday, so we will note the proposed the new local enterprise partnership will be established in the form of a business board. B, note the future working relationship of the combined authority and the new business board and the membership of the new business board. And C, agree that the combined authority shall become the accountable body for the business board from the 1st of April 2018. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Cant and a second, Councillor Ball. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 3, provided that the combined authority agrees to become the accountable body for the new business board, which obviously we have now, to note the periodic reports were made to the Combined Authority Board from the new year regarding the arrangements for the future working relationship between the two boards. A proposal, please. Councillor Roberts and a seconder, please. Councillor Ball. All those in favour? Thank you very much. I'd just like to note a couple of things. It seemed very, very clear to me, as has been mentioned already, that joint working between the Greater Cambridgeshire, Greater Peterborough LEP and the Combined Authority was absolutely key from day one. And I did make that offer to the previous chairman as soon as I was elected. I couldn't see what the point was of us both employing people to do the same job over a very similar area. I would also say that the strong economy in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough that is so incredibly successful has been helped, I believe, by the LEP over the last few years. However, I would like to think the new board will be dynamic in its setup in exactly the same way that our economy is so very dynamic and is leading the country and Europe actually in its life science and technology sectors. I believe that the future of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, with the business board, with an independent chair, once it's set up and run effectively, to have an independent chair from the business community is the right way to go. And I would expect that that will be where we will find ourselves within 12 months. I believe that this is entirely the right direction, and I believe that investment into Cambridgeshire and Peterborough will be stronger and better and more rounded because of this decision taken yesterday and today by the Combined Authority. Thank you. Part 3, we go to item 3.1, which is a budget item 2018-2019, Council Accounts.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a paper to consider and approve the draft 2018-19 Combined Authority budget for consultation purposes. Encompassed in that is all the spending requirements anticipated for the coming year, and the 2.8 is a list of encompassing new funding requirements that are known about. I would like to point out that we're in a fast-changing world. For example, the paper that we've just considered regarding the LEP will undoubtedly lead to a new structure. How that structure is funded, whether that is changes our budgetary position or whether that is simply changes the budgetary position of the LEP, these things can't be known yet. And at the speed that which we work in, all I'm able to encompass is the things that we know about and anticipate, and obviously without crystal ball guarantee, the unknowns are not in there. But I would hate to be held to account to a budget that's passed at this point of the year, and it's fine that we make relevant and important decisions in the year, and somebody says, well, let's change the budget, when they are the correct decisions to make. But this is the position where we are in at the moment. It is the budget that I'm aware of, that I'm anticipating that we're going. I'd like to highlight on page 35 some recent pieces of information that came our way that affects the budget, and they were to do with the annual budget statement delivered by Chancellor Exchequer on 22nd of November. The first is that there is an extra £1 million capacity building funds for both 2018-19 and 2019-20 to support the running costs and overhead burden for each of those years, so 2 million in entirety. And the second of which was the £74 million allocation in the Transforming Cities Fund for the delivery of local transport priorities. Yet to understand the full details and terms and conditions of that, but both are very welcome and additional. Thirdly, the expression by government about the Cambridge-Oxford Expressway, a 30-year investment programme. And fourthly, government has announced funding of £5 million, which needs to be matched for the Cambridge South Station. So everything that I want to draw to your attention is in there. It's over to you, Mayor, to me.
Thank you very much. Any comments? So we need a proposer, please, and a seconder. Councillor Herbert. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillor Count, you're very lucky because you get to announce 3.2 on the agenda, which is the Mayor's budget.
Thank you, Mayor. I was born lucky, and I hope that continues. So this is to consider and review the Mayor's budget as opposed to Combined Authority budget. The duty of the board is to decide whether to accept it, approve it in its current form, and should we decide not to approve it in its current form, to make recommendations back to the Mayor for his consideration. As we consider it, unless we make those recommendations back to you by the 8th of January, it is deemed that we are approving your budget.
Okay. Comments, please. Can't believe you're all holding back. Proposer, please. A Councillor Count and a seconder, please. Councillor Roberts. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Well, thank you very much indeed. That just leaves me to say that the date of the next meeting will be the 31st of January 2018 at 10:30 a.m. and it will be in the Chris Beerson room, all the way over the other side of the city in Shire Hall. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance, both members and members of the press and the public, and invite you to join us in our next meeting on the 18th of January 2018, 31st of January 2018. Thank you.